students. Myself Dr. Shirisha, Associate Professor from CSE Department, MLR Institute of Technology. In this session, we see what is STRUTS. So, we are going to discuss what is a STRUT framework and actually what is a framework, what are the uses of them, and what is STRUT and its advantages, disadvantages, features and everything. In this session, I just wanted to give you what is this Java Web Framework, STRUTS, and advantages, disadvantages, features of STRUTS and working of STRUTS. There's a particular process that we need to understand how this STRUTS is going to work. Then STRUTS framework. What is STRUT framework and how it is applicable? So STRUT is a framework which is used for creating the base of web application. So when you wanted to create a web application, till now we have seen a client-side programming language like HTML, XML and all, and server-side programming languages like PHP we have seen. So we need some base where this web applications has to be created. So first that we need this struts, and the framework is a set of classes. So struts, when you use, it has a set of classes, interfaces that cooperate to solve a specific type of problems. So when you write a business logic, so there will be presentation logic and also business logic. So when you are writing this business logic, you need different set of classes, objects and the interfaces that you need to understand. When you don't know these interfaces, then you can't develop a business logic for your web application. So we need to understand what are the interfaces that supports struts. Okay, so they are useful to solve a specific type of software problem. So struts function on model view controller, means MVC pattern. So MVC pattern we have to follow for any server-side programming, like in JSPs also we have MVC architecture, model, view, controller. You develop a model, you can view that model and you control the model from time to time. So struts also follows a model view controller pattern and it provides a business logic. So it is not used for developing the front end. You all know that front end is developed using HTML. So model provides the business logic and view supports the presentation logic. So in MVC, so this M is nothing but business logic to develop the model. Okay. And this view is nothing but the presentation logic where it supports how the web page should get presented, the visibility, and controller plays a navigation. So this controller, what it does, whatever the presentation to business logic, it has to access and integrate. So it will just control everything. Advantages of struts. So struts provide the central organization architecture, means the complete web application will be developed on struts for building and controlling this MVC web application. So model, view, controller, whatever you are doing in this, so this struts will provide the controlling of the presentation logic as well as the business logic. Struts enable clean separation between the code and functionality. If you are writing a presentation logic, you will write all the code that is related to your presentation logic at some place. Okay, and if you are writing a business logic, so all your business logic can be written at some place. So like that, there is a separation between the code for functionality and the code for presentation. Functionality is nothing but writing the business logic and the code for presentation is nothing but writing the presentation logic using HTML part. Struts is built in extensible authentication and validation. So what do you mean by the authentication? Whenever you wanted to develop some web application or a web page, if you wanted to use, then first thing and foremost thing that we do is a login. So how you will log in? You will have a username and password. So you have the two things. So until and unless this is these two matches, then only you can sign in. Such sort of authentication is required in struts, and validation also. Validation means whatever the username you are giving, username cannot be given all the numbers. So if you are giving all numbers, it will tell you the warning, it cannot be numbers, or it should be alphanumeric. Okay, and what are the special characters that are allowed, that will be given. So when you click on sign in, so username and password whatever you are giving, it will get signed in. So that is nothing but validation and authentication. So STRUTS build these two also. STRUT allows modular development and easy integration with other components. What are the other components we'll have? Suppose if you wanted to write a STRUT, you need a like HTML you need, and for writing a business logic you need something like JSPs, or you can also take help of Java Beans, and different frameworks you need, and also you need different tag libraries. So when you are writing the STRUT, it allows a modular development. So here we can say each one is a different module. So you need a modular development, means presentation is one module. So you have to develop the code for writing that HTML, and you have to develop code for writing your business logic based upon the server side programming. You can also use Java Beans, and also your different frameworks you have. Like if you are taking a login page, you are getting some submit button. So what is the submit button? This is a framework you can say, or this is one of the tag lib that we are going to use in the tag libraries. So it has to support and integrate all these with the other components, including the enterprise components. These are the advantages of STRUTS. What are the disadvantages? Along with the advantages, STRUTS also have some disadvantages, like framework is not flexible. Means whenever you are developing this framework, it will integrate, but there may be chances when you have some updates, it may not be flexible for that integration. And STRUTS framework imposes a way of thinking, designing and coding. So when you can't think, so when you are lagging in thinking capability, or when you don't know how to design a page, so then what happens? It fails. So framework, it supports what? You have to first think what is the requirement. So that requirement should be known. Then you have to design that, then code. Okay. So coming to this design part, you can write, as I told you, your presentation logic and business logic, everything you will be writing, and you will have a client, and this request will be sent to the server. And when the server is fulfilling its request, it will send back the responses. Okay. STRUTS have increasing learning curve. So it also have increasing learning curve, means you need to know all these. Until and unless you know what is JSP, what is Java Beans, and what are the other tag libraries you have, what are the different interfaces you have, you can't just go and write. But in PHP, that's not the case. If you can easily understand the things and just pass the things dynamically in PHP. So it provides a easy coding. So this is not suitable for small applications, as you are having a increasing learning curve, means you have to learn more to apply STRUTS. Okay. So for smaller applications, obviously will not go for this, because you need to learn a lot, like you need to know what is Java Beans and all. But in PHP, just knowing the PHP and working of the Apache Tomcat server is enough, or XAMPP or WAMP server is enough. Then you can develop. So we'll go for larger applications also. That STRUTS is just not applicable for smaller applications, because for smaller things we don't take that much pain. STRUTS is not a part of J2EE, so it is not included in J2EE specification. So this is one more disadvantage we have with STRUTS. What are the features that we have with STRUTS? It encourages good design practices, because whatever new designs you wanted to give solutions for the software problems, and we can go with STRUTS, and you can develop good models also, because the framework is designed with the time proven design patterns. So time to time you can change them. Okay, and struts is most simple and easy to learn and use. Whenever you have developed some application, if you wanted to do any modifications, then you just don't need to go to again your Java file, then compile it, then run it. No, not at all required. So just do the changes then and there, and it will be applicable. So it is almost simple and easy to learn. It supports convenient features such as input validation and internationalization. Means what? Whatever the inputs that user is giving, whether that input is applicable, required or not. So that can be validated. Means suppose phone number is there. If your phone number is 123, it is okay. Okay. But if you are giving 123, hi. Then what happens? This is of text format. Text cannot be given as a phone number. Then it should validate and tell you only numericals are allowed. Okay, something like this, some warning message it will give you. What is this? This is nothing but the input validation. Then it takes much of complexity out, as instead of building your own MVC framework, you can use struts. And struts is very well integrated with J2EE and has larger community. It is flexible, extensible and easy for existing application to adapt struts framework. Obviously, it is used for integrating with any other components, as we have discussed in the advantages. Struts provide good libraries, tag libraries. So we have different tag libraries, we'll discuss shortly. It allows capturing input form data into Java Bean objects. In PHP, what we have done, whatever the form we have, okay, so whatever the form we have, so this form is submitted. When it is submitted, the data is storing in the database, right? So what you are doing here, form is directly sent using the get method and post methods. But here the form data is converted to what? Java Bean object. So you need to understand Java Beans also to apply this struts. These are called, when you are converting the input form to Java Bean object, we are calling them as action forms. So in this process, when you have a client and when you have a server, so when this form of client should be transmitted to this server, in between you also have action forms. So what are these action forms? These forms, whatever you are creating, it is getting converted to your Java Bean object. Okay, that is called action forms. It also hand over the standard error handling, both programmatically and declaratively. Wherever you are declaring, if it is wrong, then it imposes you an error, and also programmatically, syntactical errors also they can be handled. So it's one more feature of strut. So what is the working of strut? You need to understand this very keenly, because whenever you wanted to develop a small application, so an event happens which is sending the HTTP request. You know, HTTP is a hypertext transfer protocol where it transfers the information from one page to other. Okay, and controller. What is this controller? You have servlet. For example, servlet is again a server side program. Okay. What does the servlet will do? The server side program, whatever the requests that are being sent, it will be received by the servlet container in this servlet, and it sends back the responses. So in this process, the controller is using, it may use any sort of server side language. So here, for example, we have taken it as a servlet. And what happens? This controller dispatches the business logic. Now when you write a strut, okay, you have a presentation logic and business logic and all other components. So we are talking about this business logic. So this controller, okay, under this strut we have MVC. In MVC, this controller will take this business logic, it will dispatch from the servlet. So here in this process we have to use what? Servlet. And this business logic will be sent as a model application state. Then in between this, whenever you are transmitting this servlet from the client to the servlet container. So in this process, we have some process for converting, okay, for sending the responses. So you will be using a class file. Then you also need web.xml, which is a configuration file we tell, and also your HTML part, if any, based upon the application. Then what happens, this controller will take this struts config XML, which will configure everything to integrate your HTML, your Java beans, your JSPs, or anything, any Java program, or your servlet side. So it is the configuration file. So container should just to forward the views. Views means what? Presentation part. So in the presentation, you can use JSPs, and it can dispatch the business logic. So your view and your business logic together, it should get integrated here, and it should get updated and sent as a response back. So you have model application state here and also here. Only if you want a presentation, presentation is also sent using these tag libraries. You use a tag libraries to send those HTML part, means presentation part. So your model application state require two things. One is presentation and the second one is the business logic. So this controller is taking care of your business logic. This controller is taking care of your view. That means what? Here C is over, here V is over, and this is the model application state M. So this is intermediate and this is the final. So all this will get updated and it is transmitted as a response again back to the client. So how it is transmitted? Using this HTTP. To send the request, we use a HTTP request. To get the responses, we use what? HTTP response. So in between, we also have strut configuration file. Wherever this M and V should get binded. So to bind all this HTML, this configuration XML file will support. So that is also the controller will take care. So what happens is, if you are using a servlet, you will be having a web apps folder. In web apps, what happens? You will be having, you have to create a classes folder and library folder, and also you have to save your web.xml file. So in the classes folder, you have to store your class file, and library, some jar files, because we use Java objects and all. So some jar files need to be kept in library, and you also have web.xml. It also stores what? Your HTML file for input presentation part. Okay, so all these are stored at separate location, but everything is there inside this web app folder. So controller from this web apps will control both this model and also your view will be controlled by the controller. Okay, so once you see the application, then you can understand all this very easily. So that is about the working of struts. So in brief, working of struts will be in the model of model view controller MVC architecture. It follows where you model coded separately, your view, that means your view is coded separately. Model means what? Business logic. View means what? Presentation logic. Okay.